new look kind of urgent. So right now it's 7 a.m. I still haven't gone to bed. There's also a typhoon outside, which is probably why you're gonna hear some random ass noises. I don't look very presentable right now, but well, it is 7 a.m. and I still haven't gone to bed. Maybe that's why. This video is gonna be super messy because I think it's really difficult to formulate these thoughts, especially to articulate it in a verbal and coherent manner. Because oftentimes, at least for me, these thoughts tend to occur simultaneously. They tend to sort of sprout like fireworks at the same time, though with varying degrees of brightness, significance, loudness, etc. I think it's urgent because it is a fresh conversation on my mind. I'm still thinking about it. Okay. Sometimes I'm afraid to blame everything on my dad because sometimes it feels like a cop out. It feels like I'm essentially saying, this isn't my fault, it's just done to me. It's why I turned out this way. Someone did something to me. It's why I am more hesitant to use my dad as the answer to a lot of my insecurities, problems, whatever, even though it is a very logical answer. And I suppose that's the disclaimer. Why do I hate myself? Why am I so critical of myself? Why am I so judgmental of myself? Why am I so self-deprecating all the time? Is it because I grew up in a very critical household? It is... My memory tells me that my dad was very hot and cold. You know, he would praise you 1 second and he would essentially shit on you the next. So it's either he's very loving or he's very critical. And I suppose you could argue that that's how I am to myself right now. Sometimes I feel really good. Other times I feel really shit. And when I do, I tend to be really hard on myself for things that are honestly irrelevant or perhaps insignificant. I think, insecurities as a woman, they're definitely learned. I doubt anyone who's living alone in the woods would ever learn what an insecurity is. So if it's not my dad, maybe it's the people I surround myself with. Maybe it's because insecurities are so integral to girlhood. Every single girl has insecurities, especially when you're going into middle school and high school. Every single girl has such deep and seemingly irreversible insecurities. It's like every girl you've met and you will meet, she will be incredibly insecure about something. That is something that I've accepted to be part of the female experience. And maybe it's like, because I'm surrounded by these people all the time, then you kind of just bond over that. Your trauma bond is essentially that, right? You basically talk about your insecurities, and sometimes I think, talking about negative emotions, or not negative emotions, but like emotions that make you feel sad, or things that make you sad, it's certainly necessary, but sometimes, at some point, there comes a transgression where instead of talking about it to resolve it, you're talking about it to remind yourself of it. And maybe at some point, I've reached that limit. At some point, it is kicking a dead horse, beating a dead horse, to just talk about my insecurities over and over again, because there are no new revelations, It's just, I'm insecure about this, I think this is why, it's affecting my life in this way, now what? It's not like you can solve insecurities rationally, because these are not rational things. So I think there's no way for me to sit like this. I'm coming down from sickness. Anyway, so maybe it's the people I surround myself with, and it's sort of built into girlhood such that when you are with girls, insecurities will be omnipresent. Another thing I was thinking about would be the content I watch. Maybe it's because I watch things that talk about insecurities all the time, then similar to the last point, you essentially get reminded of it. Especially when you're on the internet, you discover new insecurities. I think I didn't even know that shoulders could be an insecurity until year 7, when my friend told me about like the K-pop 90-degree shoulder thing, and then suddenly I became conscious of that. or conscious. I became conscious and conscious of that. And like these things keep on happening. I think like you just discover new insecurities or new things to be insecure of that previously you were not privy to. And if I'm being honest, you could say like I was gonna say maybe ignorance is bliss, but at the same time I don't think this is ignorance. I think when you don't have an insecurity and suddenly gain consciousness because of something you watch and you have a new insecurity, it's not that oh you stopped ignoring your insecurity. Unless it's something that compromises your health, I don't think it matters if I'm being honest. Like being insecure about the shape of your face, that's irrelevant to your health. I think that I would rather ignorance is bliss because I don't think it's ignorance. I think it's just well, it's just being able to live with yourself kindly and happily because there's no point in being insecure in something like that. And perhaps it's easy for me to say that to you right now, but it's definitely difficult for me to say that to myself. Another thing is that I'm quite violent when I'm mad. I say things that are very macabre, is how you pronounce that word. Is it macabre? I verbalize things that are very brutal, I guess, and violent. And I was thinking, I wonder why. My first thought again, which immediately felt like a cop out, was, oh, maybe it's because, all the hate, all the hatred, and all the anger that have basically aggregated in me throughout the years, directed towards my dad. These emotions sort of leak out during, or like, these things sort of leak out when things trigger me, such as something related to my dad. And but it could also just be, I guess you could argue this is like the one coping mechanism that I've always had, which was when you were a kid and your parents screamed at you, what you did was you mumbled to yourself after they turn around and be like, fucking I hate you, stuff like that, right? So maybe I never grew out of that. What else, I'm sick and tired of being insecure. It's not even a fun thing to be. Like, it's not a fun state. Sometimes I wish I never really had insecurities to begin with, even if that meant I was an outcast in society, even if that meant you are the target of ostracization. That's how you pronounce that word. Like, it genuinely does bleed into every single facet of my life with how self-deprecating and insecure and ashamed I am. And it's hard to notice these things because, well, I'm 18. I've gone 18 years of my life thinking like this. It's difficult for me to just suddenly realize, oh, I'm being overly critical of myself, or I'm being overly unfair to myself. It's difficult to realize these things when that is the only pattern that you are familiar with, or you know of, or you are aware of. It's like a suffering man won't really be aware of his suffering unless he's felt anything better. You won't really know that you're sad unless you've felt happiness before. It's like that again. Oh my goodness. How do you solve insecurities? No clue. Insecurities are irrational things. I think I should first. Ow, my shoulder hurts. I think the first step would be to target insecurities that are physical. Maybe physical insecurities are a bit easier to deal with. Maybe I think I should. Previously, I think I've sort of succeeded in essentially believing in the fact that people's meanings are not derived from their productivity. They're not derived from the amount of output they can produce. They're not defined by their intelligence, by their wealth, by their whatever, right? And I think I internalized that thought. And so now I think I am therefore less critical of people's and my own output or productivity. think then the next step to that would be to detach people's meanings and subsequently my own from our appearances, our aesthetics. I think, yeah, so much of the female identity is entangled with and intertwined with our appearance. A lot of the female experience is just us reassuring each other, you look good, we look good, we're both attractive. Or a lot of the interactions that we have between women is us teaching each other how to be more attractive. And like, I think, compared to men, I suppose women are less allowed to have, or less encouraged to have, an identity outside of your appearance, or at least an identity irregardless of your appearance. As in, I feel like when you are ugly as a woman, you are genuinely a bullseye for everyone to target: boys, girls, men, women, everyone. And I don't know why. Like, okay, someone's ugly. So what? Being ugly isn't a crime. There's nothing wrong with being ugly. What's wrong with being ugly? Why do you need to be bullied? Why do you have to be insulted? And I think, I guess it's kind of similar to patriarchal bargaining. It's just this fear, I suppose. Oh my god, someone's broom is halfway out the balcony because of the typhoon. Anyway, where was I? Fuck, I lost my train of thought. Anyway, I think so much of our, at least for me, I don't think I realized how deeply insecure I was until this year, which is ridiculous to say. Again, it's kind of like the, like, you can't really experience, or you can't really know what sadness is without having experienced happiness first. To me, I think up until this year, I thought that everyone thought like this. I thought that every woman, at least, I thought that every girl thought like me. But no, it turns out, compared to the people around me, I'm quite an extreme case. I'm quite an extremely insecure individual. And I suppose you could attribute this to how well I cover this up, I guess. Like, I think just by looking at me, if you know me in real life, I won't really strike you as a very insecure person. At most, I'll strike you as an attention-seeking person. But I don't think I'll strike you as a very self-hating person, I guess. Okay. But then, how do you internalize the idea that people, especially myself, we are not defined by our aesthetics, we are not defined by our looks? I think I'm just gonna keep repeating it, every single time I catch myself thinking, oh my god, I look so bad in this picture, I'll think, okay, so what? You look bad in this picture, so what? People are gonna look bad. You're human, you're gonna look bad. You're not gonna look good from every single angle. Your how good you look is gonna depend on the lighting, on the angle, on how well you slept that day, how much food you've been eating, how much like how healthy you've been eating, how much water you've been drinking. It's like it depends on a million different factors. You can't look good all the time, and even then, like, so what if you look bad? There's nothing wrong with looking bad. There's nothing worth criticizing, even when you do look bad. Like, so what? Your teeth can be whiter, your face can be whiter, your brows can be more arched, your eyes can be larger, your skin can be clearer. Now what? Okay, you fit every single Eurocentric beauty standard that there is. Now what? Is your life gonna magically become perfect? Are you gonna become the ultimate person there is to live? No. We're all humans with our little flaws. And I suppose it is our flaws that what makes us us, as cliche as that is. Anyway, I should sleep. Even though I have nothing to do tomorrow, I plan on waking up at 4 p.m. tomorrow. Simply because I don't want to wake up. But anyways, see you guys. It's been a while. I haven't uploaded a video in a long time. But hopefully we can go back to our regular schedule programming. I'm gonna sleep. Goodbye, guys.